Welcome back to the Teradek live show here at the Vitec booth at Amsterdam, IBC 2014. Pat's joining me yet again.
Hey, Matt.
From Litepanels. Now, today we're going to talk about lighting fundamentals, I think, and you know, lighting is often one of those things, I think, particularly for maybe younger shooters or people first starting out. They don't pay terribly a lot of attention to it. You know, they're more focused on the camera. You know, just how important is lighting?
I think the lighting plays a real big importance, obviously, in image capture, because if you have no exposure, you're challenged. But realistically, I think people have to remember that nobody knew it all going in. So to learn is part of the deal, and not to be afraid, not to be fearful. I think also keeping in mind, if you keep it simple, it'll actually work for you. So as an example, some people will go in and they'll block off all the windows in an interior shot just so they can start from scratch, and that works if you know you're going to be shooting through the night and you have to keep a daylight creation going. But for the most part, if you gauge everything based on what's happening and come in and find out what is the one piece that's missing, and a lot of times it's just some catch light in the eye or something that's really going to allow them, when they go into a tighter shot from a wide shot, to have some sort of registration with the audience watching it on a small phone or on a 75-foot screen. So when I've been given the opportunity to speak to young filmmakers that are concerned about not knowing light, I think everybody knows the difference between good lighting and bad. I like to have somebody, for instance, we have these little spotlights built into your set that are coming down, and when I ask them, does everybody feel confident in lighting, a lot of them say no, and I tell them, I bet that you know the difference between good light and bad light. And so I'll stand directly under one of these par cans in a room, and I'll say, is this good light or bad light? And they'll say, you know, it's bad light. And then I'll back off 2 or 3 feet, so I'm not under it, but I'm actually catching some of that top light coming down, and it's filling in my face, and they can actually see me, and is this good light?
And you actually designed all the lighting setup here for the booth that we're in right now, and this is a very challenging environment. It's a funny space. There's lots of ambient light coming in from different colors and all that sort of thing. Now, how challenging is it to do something like that?
Well, first of all, I want to applaud the crew that they had built this set, because they built a beautiful set, as well as helped out a lot. So it's never me, it's always we. There was other people involved, but to keep it simple, we used a couple of the new Astras, which, you know, I had talked about the other day. It's the new 1x1 Astra, 4 times the light output, and that gives you a lot of versatility, the ability to go from tungsten or daylight. And I know that Pete here is excellent understanding of colors and what he wants to stream out, and daylight was the choice. The value becomes keeping it simple. So we just want to add some ambience to it, because the smaller the space, the more difficult, really. And by adding some ambience, that's kind of a cross fill. That light over there is for the couch, that light over there is for you. The value then becomes an overall ambience. And then we took a couple of Sola 6 Fresnels, and I always like to tell everybody light to the look. So if my camera is here, I want to have a key light over it. So this is actually working as an ambient fill, but I have a Sola 6 working as a key light for myself and other people here on the bench. And the same for you. Predominantly that camera is catching you, so I want to have a key to your look. And as long as you keep it simple like that, then you have a little extra time to start worrying about or thinking about the little nuance. Your backlight is up above you, it's way dimmed down. That's an Astra as well. A little bit spilling on the wall. And we actually took another Astra and put it over by the door entrance to the booth. And what that does is it gives a nice reflective highlight or backlight on the people sitting here. So we then don't have to put too much light or emphasis on the background or put a backlight in over top. We're actually creating the separation with this side light, that with your top side light. So if you're looking for the simplest way to do it, light your talent and look at the background. Can you get away with highlighting the background so it creates a silhouette, because putting a backlight's 15 feet up in the air and you don't have a ladder. and look at it from a perspective of how you integrate the lighting to the set. Like I said before, walk in and see what's happening, and then just add something. And all these different colors within the show are actually value. You know, I like mixing colors. I like mixing tungstens with daylights and people going in and out of light. I think I've learned from a lot of really successful cameramen and gaffers in my career, and take a little bit of each. And when you start to pay attention, or you're learning on your own, don't be afraid to experiment. Try something different, and you'll know just by looking at it whether it's good or bad. You know the old saying, what's the difference between a highlight and a flare? About $10,000 a week. So you may have some people that think it's a mistake, but in actuality it's something that they're absolutely blown away with. I remember the first time I saw somebody using a flashlight off angle flaring the lens. And that was an interesting effect of how did they do that? Was that post, was that in camera or whatever? So try stuff.
And lighting completely affects the look of anything that you're doing. The whole mood of anything can be completely conveyed by the lighting.
Yeah, it can. And I think that's the creative aspect that drives people to stay lighting directors or gaffers or chief lighting technicians instead of moving on to camera. They love and are passionate about light. It is a real dynamic. I mean, I don't expect everybody to know my career. It's been a long one, and I've been blessed with meeting and working with a lot of really talented individuals. And from that, you realize that your expertise or input is very much a part of the team play to get the best thing, which in effect gives the producer the opportunity to hire you again and again, because you gave what you wanted to give, it was what they needed, and the day was able to be completed. When the cameraman is hired, he's hired by the director, and he's hired to bring his artistic and visual message to the story that he and the production designer, or she and the production designer, create. And when you have that collaboration, there's nothing like it. It's like going to the fair for the first time. You're instantly attracted because it's so unusual. You see people waiting in the wings, and it's like they're not doing anything, and at 1 second, something comes in, happens, and then suddenly it looks completely different. And that's the magic I think we all love.
Now, for young people out there who may be watching this and sort of, they're just getting, if they're out there and they're watching and maybe they're first starting off and they've got a basic, 3-point lighting kit, for instance, something like that, and a lot of these people are doing, interviews. Mm-hmm. So I'll just get your tips. If you've got a 3-point lighting kit, basic 3-point lighting kit, it might be 3 light panels, for instance. And you go into a room. From your experience, what's the first thing you should do?
Well, first of all, like I said, take into account everything that's happening, and also your schedule, how much time you have. Secondly, if you have a lot of time and you're not really sure of how you want to propose the key, start in the background. Set the background, because it gives you more time to think, but you're also working on something, so there's activity happening. Predominantly, I like to look at the talent and figure out what's the best angle of light for them. For instance, I feel that it's very hard to improve lighting on a beautiful face, but we try. So where I put that key light, if you will, and the key light doesn't mean it's the harder or hotter, it's the most dominant to the features of the talent's face. For women, I like to stay very complementary, almost next to or above the lens. You know that if you're...
just in saying that, while we're on that point, if you're putting up your key light and you'll say you're sitting down in a normal interview situation, where's the best angle, do you think, to have your or height, I would say, to have your light? Are you putting it higher, or are you putting it at head level?
I think typically, rule of thumb is 40-degree angle to the talent. So as we look at what I said before about light to the look, so if my look is here, I want to have that key light here. So suddenly my fill is one side or the other. So typically it's a 40-degree angle. So 40-degree angle from the talent position and the height of the light to project down on them. So some people don't like neck shadows, so they'll add a soft light coming up underneath to wash it out. Some people want all soft. There's a great video online called 100 Years of Women in Film that is spectacular because it shows the different approach to lighting women from the 1900s all the way up into the 2000s. It's a fabulous piece. Nonetheless,
I guess lighting too for different skin tones is important.
Skin tones, color, haircuts, colors of hair, it all plays in together. So try and find the light that's more complementary. Men can handle, I think, because of the effect of rugged features, can handle a side light much better than a woman. We want the woman to look absolutely beautiful on camera, so that's why over the top is always a very good start. Also, when you're using your edge light or your backlight, don't be afraid to not use it in the traditional Hollywood where you have light on the shoulders and on the top of the head. Years ago I used to have hair, and so I could have handled a backlight a lot better. But I would, for someone such as myself, I would put a highlight into the background behind me to create the separation, especially so important in HD, but at the same time not cause some sort of flare or highlight that is going to be distracting. And the key light being set where it is, look at the fill. You may find that you actually don't really need a lot of fill. I mean, Fincher made a fantastic career. He's a brilliant filmmaker, but artistically, he would look at something and say, I don't need a fill. That's why I like people walking in and out of light as well. There's a different approach to everything. You really want to find out how it works best. Take a camera, build a lazy Susan, put a person in a chair, put one light in the room, and rotate the camera and the person on that lazy Susan. And you will find that suddenly from that different angle, that light looks a lot better. And it's a simple way, if you don't have a lazy Susan, have your friend hold a work light and walk around and try different things. Don't be afraid to test it.
And you don't really want to have super harsh light when you're doing particularly things like interviews, because you don't want the person sitting there squinting, being uncomfortable. So it's important to lighten an environment where you don't have to use that sort of light. If you have to use that amount of light, you're probably doing it in the wrong spot.
That's a great point. And I think that's the value of the more you experiment, the more you try, the more you find your mistakes, the easier it is to never repeat them. And so you can't be afraid that somebody's going to see something and it's going to be a mistake. Most people that are starting out have a mentor that's there that brought them in. And they'll say, I like it, but it's not really going to work for right now. Or they may say, I can do all this. And they may say, I love your enthusiasm, but we don't have the time. Because that mentor knows the experience of time. Nobody wants to be waiting. We only want to wait on the director and the talent discussing how they can adjust to that shot differently for more room for the editor to cut that story. So when you're in that situation, experiment. Challenge yourself with, on your off time, playing with a still camera and light. Try different faces. It's not always going to be a beautiful face, but it's something that is more complementary that you're looking to. How can I enhance what's there? Why was that person cast? What kind of story are we doing? Is it all low scary or is it flat and comedy? It all has its own merits, and the more experience you get with all those, the more you can adapt very quickly to the situation or what's happening at hand.
And for someone starting off who's just looking to buy a simple, a 3-light kit to get going, what would be your recommendation if you had to get 3 lights?
That's simple, Matt. Litepanels. No, the best thing about Litepanels, I think, is the fact that we've introduced a fantastic range of products, different prices and different uses. I've always said that if you're going to buy, rent first. So try all the manufacturers you want. Find something that fits your groove, your style, and that will complement your personality and your look. I know that we've got more lights in our lineup than most LED manufacturers, but we've been doing it longer than anybody else, and we come from a lighting background. So keep in mind, you have to experience, whether it's LED, tungsten, quartz, HMI, fluorescent, you have to experience something that, one, works for what you need, but you're also starting out trying to create your own style, something that will actually have someone say, wow, look at that work. Who is that? I want to meet them or I want to use them because I've never seen that before. And you're breaking boundaries. You're always testing what you have, and you'll find a lot of directors that will actually change cameramen that they've been with for 5, 10, 17 years, simply because it is a simple system, but they want to try something else because the agencies that are hiring directors for commercials are changing as well. So that's the best part of it. There's this great collaborative group of people that's constantly in flux, and if you lose one job, that just means another opportunity opens up. The better you are and the humbler you are, the more people want to experience you.
Okay, fantastic. That's fantastic advice right there. That's all the time we have for right at the moment. We'll be back later this afternoon with more panel shows here from the Teradek live show at IBC 2014. Bye for now.